Želim vam da sačekamo samo opremu na jedinici, da stave. Trojka je engleski. Je li u redu? Na trojci je engleski. Na broju 3. U redu. Želim vam svima dobar dan i dobrodošli u Medija centar u Čaglavici. Nadam se da svi koji su juče slavili praznik da su ga srećno proveli. Ja još jednom vam čestitam. I želela bih da vam najavim današnju javnu debatu koju je podržala Finska kancelarija u Prištini, a koja za temu ima zaštita kulturne baštine na Kosovu. Naši današnji gosti, naši današnji panel učesnici su gospođica Nana Magnadotir, koja je šef kancelarije Sekretarijata Saveta Evrope u Prištini, gospodin Rafael Negel, koji je šef kancelarije za zajednice u Međunarodnoj civilnoj misiji, i gospođica Lirije Kajtazi, koja je zamenik ministra kulture u vladi Kosova. Ja vam se još jednom zahvaljujem što ste došli i na početku ćemo čuti uvodna izlaganja naših panelista. Ja vas molim da to bude od 5 do 7 minuta, pošto imamo dosta novinara i verovatno ima dosta pitanja. I zamolila bih prvo gospođicu Nanu Magnadotir iz Saveta Evrope da da svoje uvodno izlaganje. Izvolite.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I was very glad to receive the invitation for this debate on cultural heritage in Kosovo, and I'm happy to participate, not only because it gives us a chance to look at this issue from a various points of views, but also because I think it's very important in terms of raising awareness of the importance of cultural heritage for Kosovo. Kosovo is very rich and diverse when it comes to cultural heritage. There are 14th century churches and monasteries, there are 16th and 17th century mosques and hammams, there are kulas, there are konaks, and a number of historical bridges that all together actually represent the life in Kosovo as it has been through the ages. In fact, the Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Mr. Terry Davis, has expressed himself in saying that some of the finest examples of common European heritage are to be found in Kosovo. But he has also said that this heritage, irrespective of religion, language, or ethnicity, has actually suffered immensely in the past. Because as we all know, much of this heritage was damaged or destroyed either during the recent conflict or in its immediate aftermath. The Council of Europe has been involved in Kosovo now for many years because it considers cultural heritage to be a resource for sustainable development, social cohesion, and quality of life. It's a natural part of the fabric of society and represents the roots that we all share. But some of that fabric was damaged and needs to be repaired. The Council of Europe, together with the European Commission, has actually been active since 2003 in implementing a joint program in Southeast Europe on identifying and preserving cultural heritage. Not as an end in itself, but as a mechanism which is geared towards celebration of diversity, the encouragement of constructive dialogue, and the promotion of mutual respect. The Council of Europe has also, at the behest of UNMIC, been chairing and supporting the Reconstruction Implementation Commission for Serbian Orthodox religious sites in Kosovo. Through this and other work, the Council of Europe has identified 5 main types of action as the key to improving cultural heritage protection in Kosovo. And I would like to just shortly take stock of each of these 5 actions and see what progress has been made and what challenges remain in these areas. The first that I would like to mention is legislative reform. After the conflict, there was, I would have to say, a bit of a legal vacuum in Kosovo. The 1994 law was repealed. The law from 1977 was not enforceable. But finally, a law on cultural heritage was passed and promulgated in 2006. But a law like that does not implement itself. It needs some sort of support. And this is why a set of sub-laws or regulations have now been signed and are set to support the implementation of the law. These have been elaborated with support from the European Commission and the Council of Europe through the facilitation of UNMIC. And I have to say that they bring the legislative framework much in line with European standards in general. So there has been good progress in this field, but the challenge remains implementation. The second type of activity that the Council of Europe has identified as a need is institutional strengthening. In Pristina, there's a Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, which has had tasks progressively handed to them for some years now from UNMIC. There's a central institution of protection of monuments, and there are also local institutes of protection of monuments. There's also the Ministry of Environment and Spatial Planning and a Ministry of Trade and Industry, which need to take cultural heritage into account in their planning, both in spatial planning when it comes to developing tourism, etc. There's an institutional complexity that sometimes leads to a lack of coordination, both at the central and at the local level. In addition, there are new technologies such as data bank management, technical documentation, heritage assessment, restoration trades, etc., that all demand that there be enough staff and that staff be adequately trained to deal with these issues. As I understand it, the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports in Pristina considers this a priority, and that is obviously something that is needed. Oh, I'm sorry. I tend to talk too fast. I hope you're getting the gist of what I'm saying. The third type of action that the Council of Europe has identified as a precondition for a successful cultural heritage policy is encouraging the participation of civil society. I have to say that in general, this is something that needs to be developed further. Of course, I welcome very much an initiative such as the one here today, because this is exactly what we want to see. We have to bear in mind that it's no longer just civil servants that bear the responsibility or are concerned with cultural heritage. Private owners also have a major role to play. And they should not be opponents, but they should be on board on how to actually protect and preserve cultural heritage for the benefit of everyone in Kosovo. Not only in Kosovo, but in Europe in general, because this is our common heritage. Cooperation with private firms and institutions can also be a way to get further when it comes to funding, because as we know, public funds are always limited when it comes to preserving and protecting cultural heritage. So these sorts of partnerships can be very lucrative. Same is true for relationships with religious authorities. Much of the cultural heritage in Kosovo is also a religious heritage. And it's absolutely imperative that the authorities enjoy a partnership with these authorities, that is, authorities in Kosovo vis-à-vis the religious authorities, and actually seek their advice and seek their support before they start any action with regard to the religious heritage. So these are long-term partnerships that need to be encouraged and need to be engaged in. The fourth activity that the Council of Europe has identified is increasing financial resources. We all know that resources are limited, but if we want to really preserve and protect cultural heritage, we need ambitious funding. Some of that comes from public funding, but there have also been quite a number of international organizations and bilateral donors. Now we have the Finns supporting this debate, so you have quite a lot of interest from the international community to support, but that also means that some coordination is needed. And that's an area that maybe could be strengthened. Thank you. Apologies again. The fifth activity that I would like to mention that the Council of Europe considers a priority is devising and implementing politically sustainable strategies. Because the laws do not implement themselves, there's much already that I've mentioned: institutional strengthening, encouraging civil society participation, and these can very well fit together in a policy or a strategy that can also very much fit in with other strategies and policies that are already in existence. I don't think I can stress enough that in parallel to these 3-5 type of actions, there should always be an effort to inform the public and raise their awareness in educational programs, with exhibitions, with publications, as well as giving maximum access to heritage sites for people to enjoy, because this is really a precondition for cultural heritage to thrive. And this is also the objective of the European Heritage Days, which are a joint action of the Council of Europe and the European Commission, and that are now celebrated all over Europe for a period of days and allowing access to the cultural heritage sites in Europe. Now, to the delight of the interpreter, I'm about to wind down, so I'll try to speak a bit more slowly for the rest of the presentation. I have, for the past few minutes, tried to shed some light on the progress that has been made, but also to point out some of the challenges that still remain. There are others, of course. We all know that there is illegal construction that needs to be dealt with, and there are other issues as well. But at the end of the day, the largest challenge is for all of us to recognize the importance of cultural heritage and its role in society, be it economical, social, or environmental, and that we all have a responsibility to preserve this heritage for the common benefit for all of us and for all in Europe. Thank you.
Gospodin Cinani, gospodine Neigro, izvolite.
Dame i gospođo, dobar dan, dobro jutro. Hvala za poziv za Media Centar. Veoma mi je drago pričati s vama o zaštiti kulturne baštine. Ja mislim, zaštita kulturne baštine je jedan od najvažnijih zadaci vlade Kosova i zaštita kulturne baštine je u centru mandata ICO-a. Why is it in the heart of our mandate? Cultural heritage is important for each and every community living in Kosovo. Serbian community has its cultural heritage. The Albanian community has cultural heritage. So do the Roma, the Gorani, the Bosniak, the Turkish, all the other communities. But above all, cultural heritage is something that every inhabitant of Kosovo, or all inhabitants of Kosovo, share. Cultural heritage reflects the past of this country, which was a rich past, with influence from all directions. And in many of the buildings, you see that the different layers, they are actually combined. If we take the castle in Novo Brdo, you will find parts of Orthodox churches. You will find part of Catholic churches. You will find older parts of the castle, which come from Illyrian dates. So everything is combined in one complex building which reflects the history of this country. And it's physically not possible to distinguish one or the other. So cultural heritage is at the key of the identity of each community, but it's also at the heart of the identity of Kosovo. Cultural heritage is not only an obligation, it's also a chance. It's one of the richnesses, of wealth of this country. It bears a huge potential for development, for economic development, for tourism. So the protection of cultural heritage is, as I mentioned, one of the most important tasks for everybody here. The comprehensive status proposal has a number of provisions related to the protection of cultural heritage. The most important of it is the establishment of special protective zones. Around important monuments, we have perimeters of 50 or 100 meters. In other cases, we have a delineated territory which is there for protection of these monuments. They are there to protect the character of the sites. For instance, to protect the monastic life in case of the monasteries. Protective zones doesn't mean that nothing can be done in this territory, but the use is restricted. The construction of new buildings is restricted. The construction of, let's say, heavy industry is restricted. But other sorts of using of the territory are still possible. The protective zones do not change anything in the ownership, and the actual landowners keep their land, of course. This instrument is nothing specific to Kosovo. Almost all European countries have this kind of protection zones around important monuments. The comprehensive status proposal also includes provisions on the security for religious and cultural sites. You know that at the moment KFOR is protecting some of the sites. This is not a long-term solution. So Kosovo police will take over as soon as possible. Kosovo police already took over a number of sites. The comprehensive status proposal also foresees some privileges for duties and taxes for the Serb Orthodox Church, making sure that they may continue their operations as they did. It has one provision on the establishment of an implementation monitoring council. This is a body which should give advisory opinions if there is a dispute when it comes to the use of a land, for instance, in a special protective zone. There is one provision on the name, on the internal organization, and the property of the Serbian Orthodox Church. And then there's one article on the return of archaeological and ethnographical exhibits, which currently are in Belgrade at the museum, which belong to Kosovo and should be returned one day. All this is included in the comprehensive status proposal. And it's our mandate to support the government in the implementation of this. One point is important. There is a disagreement on the status proposal. Many people do not accept it and to claim it's not a legal document. This is true. On the other hand, the article on the protection of cultural heritage was developed jointly with representatives from the Serbian Orthodox Church. Both Bishop Artemia and Bishop Theodosia have been participating in these negotiations. Representatives from Belgrade. And there was a consensus on these articles. Not on the rest of the Ahtisaari package, as you know. But on these provisions, there was a consensus. So we are confident that the protection of cultural heritage, as it is described in the Ahtisaari package, is in the interest of all the communities of Kosovo. We are moving the agenda ahead, jointly with the government, and we hope that those people who also are not here at the table today, which means representatives from the Serb community, which means representatives from the Serbian Orthodox Church, will appreciate our efforts and will join us in our work. The Minister of Culture has a key role in this process. Last Friday, Minister Bećiri himself signed a number of sub-legal acts which will pursue the implementation. These bylaws are an important tool to strengthen the legal framework on the protection of cultural heritage. I think we agree that the Ministry of Culture also needs some support and needs to be strengthened. My colleague, previous speaker, already mentioned the coordination between a number of different international partners. We have the Council of Europe, we have the European Union, we have a number of bilateral donors, of embassies, who are active in the field of cultural heritage. It's very important that those efforts are combined in a constructive manner. ICO is ready to participate in that. These days we are setting up regional offices. And I will finish with a positive note. Our regional office in Prizren witnessed on Friday a trial where a person who has stolen objects from an Orthodox church site has been prosecuted. This sends a very positive message that if a person is attacking a church site, if he's stealing things, there is a rule of law. This person is being prosecuted. So I'm happy that the Kosovo police and the Kosovo legal system is taking their job serious to protect the cultural heritage of this country. Thank you.
Hvala lijepo, gospodine Negil. Gospođo Kajtazi, izvolite.
Faleminderit që keni vlerësuar të jemi këtu. Kjo është një shans i mirë edhe për neve të prezentojmë gjitha arritjet dhe angazhimet e qeverisë Kosovës, respektivisht Ministrisë Kulturës në fushën e trashëgimisë. Gjithnjë duke pas ndihmesën e përfaqësuesve ndërkombëtar, tani edhe këtu jemi bashkë edhe që ta zbërthejmë këtë temë edhe për t'i prezantuar projektet tona edhe angazhimet tona të përbashkëta. Nga se edhe qeveria Kosovës natyrisht dihet që të gjitha angazhimet rreth sferave të veçanta dhe posaçërisht në trashëgimi duhet ta bëj brenda kornizave ndërkombëtare, kornizave, rregullave dhe gjitha atyre konventave që rregullojnë këtë trashëgimi. Tani kemi më lehtë, mund të them më lehtë për arsye se ekzistojnë ligje të cilat e rregullojnë fushën e tillë dhe ligje si të tilla obligojnë të gjithë qytetarët në veçanti institucionet që janë thirrura për me zbatu politikat caktuara të fushës së veçantë. Unë falenderova ndërkombëtarët të cilët ofrojnë projekte të veçanta të cilët na ndihmojnë në kryerjen e punëve dhe obligimeve tona të përditshme, nga se ne jemi të kyçur edhe në programet rajonale të Evropës Juglindore, cilat programe na bën që obligimet tona bashkë edhe me pjesën e mirë edhe të ndihmesave në fushën e legjislacionit edhe të donacioneve të ndryshme të kemi rezultate më të theksuara. Në këtë drejtim fushën e legjislacionit veç se kemi pranuar një ndihmesë të tillë, është ligji për trashëgiminë e kulturës dhe Ministria e Kulturës, edhe pse ka edhe ligje tjera që presin nxjerrjen e akteve nënligjore, i ka kushtuar një rëndësi të veçantë dhe këtij ligji dhe ka nxjerrë akte nënligjore të cilat në specifika të caktuara bëjnë rregullimin e lamive të caktuara të kësaj sfere. Duke pas edhe duke ndilë si pasuri tonën të përbashkët të gjithë këtë trashëgimi, cilën me të drejtë e kanë prezantuar dhe gjithë të tjerë, një pasuri e cila ofron më shumë vlera para tërësisht po them para njerëzimit, ne kemi marrë edhe angazhimet e caktuara me cilat për çdo ditë angazhohemi qoftë në fushën e sigurisë, e dim këtë drejtim edhe kemi prezentuar mjaft rezultate, bëjmë sigurinë e tërsive të trashëgimisë ortodokse dhe fetare, po ajo që lehtëson punën fillimisht përmenda tani janë ligjet, cilat nxjerrin detyra për të gjithë qytetarët përgjithsisht. Dhe në kuadër saj është edhe ligji operativ i policisë Kosovës, i cili në të ardhmen do t'i mbulojë shumë më mirë dhe do të ketë një përkujdesje të tërësishme për këtë pasuri. Në kohën e temave botërore, të globalizimit edhe të gjithë diversitetit kulturore, trashëgimisë, sigurisht se edhe ne si kosovar duhet ta themi fjalën e veçantë, prandaj besoj se bashkë edhe me ndërkombëtar do të përpiqemi që në të ardhmen edhe konferencat caktuar në këtë drejtim të prezentojnë edhe atë diversitet edhe rolin tonë në globalizimin përgjithësi të vlerave të trashëgimisë. Ne kemi mjaft rezultate, po nuk kënaqemi me to nga se synojmë më tepër. Mbi 6 milion euro kemi shpenzuar në rregullimin e këtyre tërsive dhe në rujtjen e vlerave, po vazhdojmë të kontribuojmë më tutje në këtë drejtim që të jenë përgatitura gjithë këto monumente, gjithë këto tërsi, gjithë këto vlera trashëgimisë që të futen edhe të regjistrohen si vlera universale, duke respektuar ato rregulla që përmenda ashtu si janë precizuar nga UNESCO edhe organizata tjera që bojnë vlerësimin edhe mbrojtjen e këtyre vlerave të tërësishme. Ajo që do të na lehtësoj punë vazhdim, mendojmë do të jenë edhe ato cilat dalin obligime ligjore, këshilli zbatues monitorues dhe gjitha këshillat edhe organizma tjerë do t'i marrin obligimet veta dhe do të fillojnë edhe zbatimin e asaj që është obligim për ne. Ne kemi, po tham, mjaft mekanizma me cilët kryjnë punën tonë përditshme përveç divizionit trashëgimisë kulturore me krejt ato institucione të trashëgimisë, kemi komunikim të vazhdueshëm edhe me organizma tjerë, kemi formacionin e kirit, rindërtimit kishave, cilin gati jemi në finalizim, edhe besojmë se shumë shpejt do ta përmbyllim. Ajo e cila ndjerë në pa edhe veçantit dhe privilegjet në fushën e trashëgimisë është edhe një shtati marrëveshjes për statusin e Kosovës, një marrëveshje cilën e kanë bërë aktorët cilët u përmendën edhe nga zotriu nga ICO që nxjerr obligime të ndërsjella dhe vën pa të tërë angazhimet tona në këtë drejtim. Përveç asaj që prezentohet në aneksin e 5, është aneksi 6, tash që nxjerr obligimet të ndërsjella dhe për dëshmu se vërtet çmojnë pasurinë e njëri tjetrit, duhet kthehen edhe gjithë artefaktet cilat janë tani nga jashtë Kosova në Beograd dhe besoj shumë shpejt do të gjendet mënyra që ajo pasuri të vinë në vendin e caktuar. Ne duke pa gjithnjë pasuri të tërë këtë potencial të trashëgimisë, vazhdojmë të arrujmë atë dhe dëshmi e rujtjes dhe e çmimit të kësaj vlere është se ato nuk janë të sotit, asnjëra prej tyre, janë rujt me shekuj. Nëse janë rujt me shekuj, do të vazhdojnë të qëndrojnë edhe më tutje dhe do të ruhen si tilla. Dhe çdo njëra prej tyre paraqet një kolorit të trashëgimisë. Nuk flet vetëm për një segment, po flasim për tërsi nga se datojnë që nga korat kur edhe feja nuk është nda. Do të thotë janë të një kohë shumë atëhershme edhe paraqesin të tërë pasurinë e njerëzimit, pa dash me përveçsu një dhe në një farë forme duke e çmu secilin në mënyrën dhe formën e vet. Këto, unë vazhdoj të them se prioritet për qeverinë e Kosovës është trashëgimia kulturore, për këtë duhet të punojmë bashkarisht çdo qytetar, pa fushata vendisimi, por duke prezantuar gjithnjë vlerat, cilat kemi ditë me çmu edhe në të kaluarën.
Hvala zamjeniku ministra kulture. Pre nego što budete vi počeli da postavljate pitanja, žela bih još jednom da se zahvalim Finskoj kancelariji na pomoći u organizaciji ove debate i da vas obavestim da smo mi na ovu debatu pozvali i predstavnike Srpske pravoslavne crkve Pozvali smo predstavnike Zavoda za zaštitu spomenika kulture Republike Srbije sa sedištem u Gračanici i pozvali smo predstavnike nevladine organizacije Centar za očuvanje kulturnog nasledja Kosova i Metohije iz Beograda. Oni se, nažalost, iz raznih razloga nisu odazvali, a na vama je da saznate te razloge. Izvolite se pitanjem. Ja samo molim da kad krenete na jednom jeziku da pitanje...
Ja ne znam drugi. Da se priča sad na bošnjačku.
Probajte na bošnjačku.
Ili na crnogorski.
Izvolite.
Uz jednu malu konstataciju je opasno. Da li postoji versko nasljeđe? Pitanje za sve to od vas. Da li postoji versko nasljeđe na Kosovu ili je sve to samo kulturno nasljeđe? Pošto niko od vas ne upotrebi reći da postoji neko versko nasljeđe, za gospodina iz ICO, čini mi se da se poznajemo od ranije, još iz Unmika, kako ocenjujete taj veliki uspeh vaš? Da posle toliko srušenih crkava i manastira na Kosovu, hvalite se da je jedan slučaj počinilac rušenja ili paljevine srpskih crkava i manastira po Kosovu uhapšen i procesuiran. Samo dozvolite. Još jednom da preciziram. Poslije rušenja i paljevine, uništavanja toliko manastira i crkava po Kosovu, jedno lice osumnjičeno, eto sad mi ispravljaju kolege, za krađu nekog eksponata iz crkve je procesuirano. Je to vaš uspjeh? I do kada ćete pravdati svoje sad već članstvo u ICO-u time što morate da ostanete da biste procesuirali i ostale osumnjičene? Pitanje je za gospođu iz Savjeta Evrope. Možete li mi nama nešto konkretno reći? Šta ste tu uradili? Obnovili smo. Uložili smo toliko i toliko sredstava. Planiramo da za nekih mjesec, 2 dana nastavimo sa obnovom tog i tog manastira, te i te crkve, kulturnog nasledja, kako vi kažete. I da li još uvijek postoji sporazum, memorandum, između Savjeta Evrope i Srpske pravoslavne crkve, pošto je vladika Artemije kao episkop Braško-Prizrenske eparhije osporio njegovo dalje postojanje posle proglašenja nezavisnosti Kosova?
Prvo pitanje za gospodina Negila, izvolite.
Thank you. First of all, yes, you're right. The official term is religious and cultural heritage. I tried to be not too long, and that's why I shortened the term a bit. Secondly, we don't know each other from UNMIC because I've never been working with UNMIC. I arrived here 4 months ago. I did not speak about the big success. I spoke about the positive signal. And I know very well that we have a huge challenge ahead of us. And we are far from having a big success. But what I mentioned is a positive tendency. The first 2 trials in the last 2 weeks went well. So I hope that this becomes a trend, that Kosovo institutions take their responsibility to protect religious and cultural heritage more efficient than this has been done before. But again, I mean, we are at the beginning of a process. We are not yet at the end.
Hvala.
Thanks.
Gospodin Senana.
Thank you very much for your question. I believe it was twofold. First of all, what we have achieved and what are our concrete plans for the future, and secondly, if the agreement still holds. That has been the basis of the reconstruction work that has been carried out. Well, I'll start with the second question, actually, because this has been a widespread myth somehow that some of the partners and stakeholders in the Reconstruction Implementation Commission have been withdrawing from the agreements on reconstruction, but this is not at all so. And I think it was only 2.5 weeks ago that we gathered in Prizren, and I'm reluctant to speak on behalf of the European Commission, but they were handing over 2 buildings that the EAR and later European Commission finished reconstructing. And on that same occasion, I actually handed over keys formally to Bishop Chrysostom on behalf of the Holy Synod to some 8 buildings that have been completed during the past years, and these include some of the priests' houses and konaks, but also some churches. And it's not a coincidence that we started also with the priests' houses and konaks, because it's an effort to make these sites sustainable. Because the intention, of course, is that these be used, and it is our hope that the Serbian Orthodox Church will now prepare to move actually some people in the houses so that they can become sustainable, because these buildings are not meant to be museums or anything like that. They are meant to be used as cultural heritage is usually meant to be in use. Well, I think I've already actually gone into the other question, which is what we have concretely achieved and where we're going. I would invite you also to take a copy of the activity report that we have published for 2007. I brought copies in 3 languages, and I believe they're over on the counter there. There's a very good table at the end of the publication which basically says what the Commission has agreed to and what are the plans for the different years, what has been completed in each year of working. So I think it gives a very fair overview of what has been happening. As for concrete plans for the future, there have been 2 meetings already this year of the Commission, and there's another one planned next week. And I wouldn't want to be speaking on behalf of the chairwoman of the Commission, who is not myself, but she would be able, I'm sure, to give more detail after the next meeting on what concretely is planned. Maybe just to give you an idea, the Church of St. George in Prizren, for instance, is still being worked on. And 2 of the 2 buildings that were handed over last week by the European Commission are the bishop's residence and the seminary, the Serbian Orthodox Seminary. So hopefully the work will progress now with that particular church, so that the whole site can then become, be in use, and definitely for the benefit of the Kosovo-Serbian community that is living in and around Prizren. So I hope this answers, and please take a publication for your own information. Thank you.
Samo želim da vas obavestim da su iz Saveta Evrope doneli ovaj izveštaj, tako da možete i kasnije dobiti ovde. Ja vas molim samo za malo kraće pitanje i kraće odgovore, ukoliko može.
Jasmina Stojković, televizija Most. Ja jedino što sam shvatila iz ove cele vaše priče i s čime se slažem, da nema koordinacije. I to je očigledno. Jer od jednog govornika čujemo da po ovom pitanju ste na samom početku, gospodin Negal, ako je dobar prevod, vi ste na samom početku, znači tek krećemo u obnovi kulturne baštine. Gospođica Kajtazi je doslovce rekla, ako je bio dobar prevod, da je do sada uloženo preko 5 miliona evra u sve ove projekte, 6, i skoro smo pri kraju obnove crkava. To su vaše reči koje su nama stigle prevodom. Da li ste na početku ili ste na kraju? Ili ovo može, gospođo Kajtazi, da se shvati samo kao jedno poistovećivanje sa statusom kosmeta, da ste pri kraju tog posla i računate da ste završili sa svime? Dakle, sa obnovom. Da ne pričamo o svim porušenim crkvama i manastirima o čijoj obnovi još uvek nema ni slova. I htjela sam samo još konkretno da mi odgovorite, gospođo Kajtazi, šta je sa odlukom opštine Dečane, u stvari odlukom UNMIK-a da se manastiru vrati katastarska zemlja u njenom vlasništvu, čemu se odupire opština Dečane, dakle to ne prihvata, nešto što je vašim zakonom doneto, usvojeno, samo treba da se sprovede u delo. Čak ni jedno tako minoran potez ne možete da ostvarite u praksi. O čemu onda pričamo?
Izvolite, gospođo Kajtazi.
Po atë që prezentuam është një saktësi, gjithëherë ka fillim dhe mbarim të punëve, ajo që ofron kontinuitet është ligji për trashëgimi kulturore, i cili kujdeset për çdo ditë dhe për gjithë shka që i takon trashëgimisë. Ai do të jetë gjithnjë, derisa do të jetë fuqi, do të jetë detyrim, cilin do të vazhdojmë ta respektojmë, si që respektojmë edhe trashëgimin kulturore. Përmenda shumë angazhime, tani që janë mekanizma dhe ligjet është më letë, ndërta përmenda një organizim që thash është Komisioni për rindërtimin e kishave. Dhe në memorandumin e përbashkët të nënshkruar, për cilin falet edhe jo, i cili normalisht që vjen shpreja atëherë kur të dy palët janë gatshme për të vazhdu, aty janë precizu edhe punët të cilat i takoj një periudhe të caktuar. Dhe në ato punë të precizuara në këtë kohë për rindërtim të kishave, ne kemi kryer 80% të punëve, cilat i takojnë rikonstruimit të kishave, ndërkohë kujdesi për trashëgimin kulturore është permanent. Them gjithë një permanent i reguluar edhe me ligj, besoj të dakordohen edhe njerëzit që janë këtu, cilët me shumë delikates e kanë përcjellë edhe punën tonë, po janë edhe përmbledhje cilat zonja Nana prezentoi se i kenin tavolin dhe do t'i kenin gjitha gjutë e mundshme për ta kuptu se aty vërtet është bërë punë, është me emër, me mbi emër, me vlerë, me të gjitha që janë të nevojshme për t'u prezentu. Kjo është ajo cilën edhe ne si qeveri duhet ta prezentojmë se nuk është ndryshe. Vazhdojnë për kujdesemi për të gjitha tërësit dhe normalisht ajo që ka shkaktu e kalumja të shërohet tani edhe duke pa gjithnjë, duke shiku gjithnjë ka e ardhmja e cila do ta bëj shumë më të mirë ditët në vazhdim. Rreth Deçanit, ju e dini se është vazhdu ajo përkujdesje cilën e ka bo përfaqësuesi ndërkombëtar dhe si e tillë do të vazhdoj edhe më tutje tani në përkujdesjet të institucioneve tona për ta çmuar si hapësirë veçantë speciale atë zonë cilën ne konsiderojmë si një pasuri e tërësishme.
Goran Avramović, Glas Juga. Pitanje za gospodina iz ICO-a. Možete da pričate o obnovi kulturnog nasledja, posebno srpskog kulturnog nasledja na Kosovu. I pitanje za gospođu ili gospođicu iz Saveta Evrope, imate li saznanje uopšte da je na temeljima Srpske pravoslavne crkve u Đakovici sagrađeno igralište, park, i šta ćete učiniti, odnosno šta činite da se zaustavi divlja gradnja blizu spomenika Razimestanu gde se prave nekakva skladišta ili šta ja znam već. Hvala.
Izvolite, gospodine Negir.
I'm not sure whether I correctly understood the question. ICO is not status neutral. ICO has a mandate to support the government in the implementation of the Ahtisaari package, of the comprehensive status proposal. So this is not status neutral. We are supported by 25 countries, including most of members of the European Union, the United States, and a number of other countries. I'm not sure whether this is answering your question.
Nije naravno, da li to znači da pripadnici recimo nekakvog balkanskog foruma? Da li to znači da pripadnici nekakvog balkanskog foruma država mogu da upadnu recimo na teritoriju Islanda i da se tamo bave zaštitom kulturnog dobra Islanda? Vi nemate osnovu, pravnu osnovu da budete ovdje, a kamoli da se bavite zaštitom srpskog kulturnog dobra. Šta mislite o tom problemu? Kako to da rešite?
In the constitution of Kosovo, there's a provision for a role of ICO. That's what we are doing here. We're not speaking about Iceland today, but you would have to look at the constitution of Iceland, whether they invite some foreign missions. Possible.
Hvala lepo, gospođica Nana.
It's actually a good example that you're taking because I happen to come from Iceland. But I wouldn't want to speculate particularly on that question, though. But as for your question that is directed to me, I would just like to stress that one of the points that I made in my original introduction is the need for dialogue and for coordination between the authorities that are taking care of cultural heritage in general and between religious authorities, because this is exactly this is what we know. There is a lot of there's a rich wealth of religious heritage in Kosovo, and it's absolutely imperative that there is a consultation whenever there are any works undertaken. There should be consultations for sure, and there should be the advice of the religious authorities should be sought. I mean, this is the general stance of the Council of Europe. As for the particular situation which you're referring to, just as a bit of an explanation, the Council of Europe is in Kosovo at the invitation of UNMIK, actually, and working on everything that concerns human rights, rule of law, and that includes democratic values and cultural heritage. And we do not have any sort of mandate to intervene or really to really to administer or do anything in that regard. I mean, I think you'll have to maybe look to my two colleagues for answers on a specific case like that, and also to stress that the Reconstruction and Implementation Commission itself is a technical body. It's a technical body that works on the reconstruction. It's not a political body. So that's, again, I don't think you would be seeing any sort of reaction from that particular body on these issues. That's I hope that answers your question.
Edona Pitsi-Altsat, one question for ICO. So how do you expect to work together with the Serb representatives in this sphere, having in mind that they do still oppose the European Union missions, EULEX and ICO? Dhe për juve, zonja Kajtazi, ju e përmendet ligjin për trashëgiminë kulturore ku ndër të tjera theksuat se policia do të ketë një rol të veçantë në ruajtjen e zonave të veçanta në Kosovë në trashëgiminë kulturore. Si mendoni se policia e Kosovës do ta bëjë ruajtjen e këtyre zonave kur kemi parasysh se policia e Kosovës dhe institucionet e tjera të Republikës së Kosovës kundërshtohen apo nuk pranohen nga serbët e këtij vendi?
Izvolite.
We are ready to work with all partners involved. And for the time being, we work with those partners who are ready to work with us. We try to do our best to implement the provisions of the Ahtisaari package, which I mentioned that there has been consensus on it. So it should be in the interest of all partners. I know that some of the partners are not ready to officially work with us. We try to take their positions on board as far as we can. And we hope one day this will improve. But we have no alternative. We try to implement the provisions as they are, and we try to convince all the other partners who are not yet at the table now that it is also in their benefit.
Po përmenda që ajo që letëson punë për momentin do t'jetë plani operativ I policisë Kosovës, I cili do të përkujdeset në këtë fushë, ndërsa ajo që është më e rëndësishme për gjithë ne që jemi këto dhe për qytetarët e Republikës Kosovës, ajo që rregullon legjislacionin në mënyrë gjenerale është Kushtetuta e Republikës Kosovës dhe pavarësisht nga planet operative apo ligjet që janë më si akte më të vogla, ne duhet të rregullojmë që kjo fushë të jetë e precizuar dhe sa më shpesh do të kuptohet që kjo është ajo që I rregullon çdo fushë dhe sa më shpejt që kuptohet si e tillë, të gjitha aktorët do ta kenë më të lirë lëvizjen përpara. Unë mendoj si e tillë ajo do të merret shumë shpejt, do të respektohet si vlerë e tërësishme, si vlerë njerëzore dhe kur çmohet si vlerë njerëzore, atëherë secili do ta pranojë tjetrin me tërë atë pasuri që ofron, me veçantitë apo me diversitetin që ofron.
Mendoni se kushtetuta e Kosovës do të respektohet edhe nga
Kushtetuta e Kosovës garanton
cilat ju duhet i ruani?
Kushtetuta e Kosovës garanton lirinë fetare. Dhe si e tillë është e pranueshme për secilin qytetar që jeton këtu dhe është e mirëseardhën si e tillë kur garanton një të drejtë elementare për secilin.
Drita Miftari nga Radio Kosova. Do të pyesja zonjën Magno, do t'ir na thot diçka rreth asaj se si mirën shkatërrimet në për këto objektet fetare nga viti 2004 apo ai viti do të nga viti 1999. Me që se e dim se sikur se kishat ortodokse apo janë shkatruar edhe xhamit, a janë bërë investime edhe në ato objekte, a vlerësohen edhe ato si të shkatruara edhe objekte fetare. Tjetëra më intereson, ato investimet cilat bëhen në për këto objekte, më pas do të thotë kur renovohen, kur rregullohen, a ka ndonjë koordinim, ndonjë bashkëpunim me udhëheqësit e këtyre institucioneve që më pas ato të jenë të hapura dhe opinioni cili do qoftë ai kosovar apo nga jashtë Kosova, të vijë dhe të vizitojë ato, meqense janë bërë investime, janë renovuar edhe të jenë të hapura për opinionin. Të shohim vlerat, do të thotë cilat i përmbajnë ato. A ka ndonjë vlerë apo jo?
Well, I think I'll go back to what my secretary. This has been irrespective of religion or ethnicity. It's true that it has been across the board. There has been a lot of damage done, and I think it would be. I don't think it's appropriate at all to make any sort of comparisons in terms of whose heritage has been violated the most, etc., etc. This is not. It's simply not very constructive, and I would like to emphasize that all of this heritage is also our common European heritage. It's not for anyone to make a comparison in terms of what has been done for different cultural monuments. It's not. There has been very much a focus on the work that has been done on the reconstruction of churches and monasteries, and that has been quite successful, and we're very happy with the progress that we have achieved. But there's also other work that has been undertaken. The Council of Europe and the European Commission, in its regional program covering all of Southeast Europe, not only Kosovo, has supported drawing up of lists of prioritized so-called prioritized intervention lists. And for Kosovo, this was drawn up, I think, in 2004. I'm not exactly sure on what, but you can find this information on the Council of Europe website, which lists 25 monuments, different monuments. There are, apart from churches and monasteries, there's a hammam there, the fortress in Prizren is there. There are other monuments as well. And this is what the Council of Europe and European Commission are now supporting authorities in raising funding for, because these are considered also of cultural and historical significance. So I don't know if that answers your question, but if you would need any more detail, I would like to refer you to our website, because we have a specific site on cultural heritage in general and on the regional cooperation that we have been doing in the past.
Tijan Arsić, Kim radio, pitanje za gospođu Kajtazi. Šta je sa obnovom Prizrena kao grada, posebno mislim na Kaljaju, pošto je i to kulturno dobro?
Tani është po edhe një përkujdesje veçantë edhe në ditët e trashëgimisë evropiane. Jemi fokusu nga Prizreni për të nxjerrë të gjitha obligimet tona për të rregulluar atë zonë. Mendoj se shumë shpejt do të dalin edhe rezultatet në drejtim. Prizreni është një zonë që ofron një trashëgimi të bujshme kulturore, të cilën se cili do të gjej diçka. Prandaj përkujtesja e qeverisë do të jetë më së shtuar në zonën e Prizrenit.
Molim još dva kratka pitanja. Gospođice iz Zastita, ispravimo se, ja se izvinjavam, stvarno.
Mr. Nego, how do you think are you going to work with the representatives of the Catholic Church, of the Serbian Catholic Church? I mean, we all know that they do work with, that they have worked with UNMIG, and that they respect Resolution 1244, but on the other side they do not respect your mission. How do you think to have a partnership with them on protection of cultural monuments?
Well, I tried to answer this question, but obviously you are not convinced yet. We try to convince them by results. We do implement all the provisions which are there to protect religious and cultural heritage sites, many of them belonging to the Serbian Orthodox Church. So we try, jointly with our partners, with the government of Kosovo, to implement these protection mechanisms. The representatives of the Church are happy to join, to discuss with us. This would increase our capabilities to work on their behalf. But as long as there is no official dialogue, we go ahead without.
But they're not here today. They were invited.
I hope next time. I hope next time. But it's the question, you have to ask it to them.
Do you think there's a lack of communication with them?
Rafael, please. Rafael.
Yes.
Nana, šta mi možete reći o crkvi Svetog Nikole u Prištini?
Izvolite.
Well, from my side, I don't have really anything specific to tell about the church itself. What I can tell you is that I believe the priest's house has been fully reconstructed, and what I can also tell you is that through the Reconstruction Implementation Commission, specification has been prepared for furnishing that house, so that the church hopefully can move in and can start using the site for regular services. That has actually already started with the contribution from the U.S. Embassy, but I would like to refer you to them also on the specifics of that. But apart from that, I don't really have any specific news or anything like that. And just to emphasize that I'm not part of the commission itself. I'm head of the office here, but the chairperson is a colleague of mine who is based in Strasbourg regularly. So maybe I don't have all the minute details of the works that are ongoing, but you can feel free to come to the office afterwards, and we can try to see if there's any more information that is available.
M'intereson edhe një di, me qenë se mendoj që më keni mbetur bashkë, 6 milion e investuar.
They're the ones that are accountable for the money that goes from the Kosovo consolidated budget. But so I wouldn't really want to speculate on that aspect of your question. But in terms of generalities, I can tell you that this was also part of my introduction, that in general the access to heritage sites should be wide and open, but of course there are also security concerns that people need to take into account. So it's a bit of a balance, and it's not up to the Council of Europe to dictate this in any way. But I would emphasize that the Council of Europe considers this to be a common European heritage, and maybe I would just like to finish my intervention by quoting, or actually telling you a story about Goethe, who is one of our biggest literary giants here in Europe. And he actually started his career considering that culture and cultural identity could only be something that you have as a nation. But he changed his mind, and he changed his mind because he was moved to tears by reading a novel written by a Chinese novelist some 3 or 4 centuries before. And if he could be moved to tears for something written in a culture far, far away, very far apart in time, then I don't know, who are we to question Goethe?
Hvala lijepo. Ja se zahvaljujem svima, molim vas, ja se izvinjavam zbog... Hvala gospođi iz Ministarstva kulture, hvala gospođici iz Savjeta Evrope, gospodinu ICO, hvala svima vama i doviđenja, želim vam prijatan dan.